He never needed chains where he used attachment as the weapon. Leon Moretti understood one brutal psychological law: break one woman and the other will obey. Claire was not abducted for ransom. She was taken to regulate Evelyn's behavior, a living pressure point inside a controlled emotional system. What makes this case disturbing is not just the captivity, but the design of it. The victim is isolated, the rescuer is removed, and affection itself becomes a mechanism of control. That is how sophisticated predators create prisons without bars.
And so it begins. Evelyn Carter walks right up to the man who built her gilded cage. The only one watching is Claire Bennett, who sees this toxic mess for what it is. Claire clocks the tremor in her friend's hand, a dead giveaway of some hidden horror, but she has no clue her own fate is getting tangled in this web of control. She completely misses the psycho hiding behind Leon Moretti's slick exterior, not realizing the trap has already snapped shut on her, too. This is a deep dive into a twisted bond, an inside look at how a narcissist builds his empire. It starts here, at an estate designed to choke the life out of you. Claire Bennett feels her own breath catch in its suffocating splendor. They clicked back in college, a weird mix of two totally different vibes. Evelyn was a chaotic ball of fun. Claire was the calm, sensible anchor. 6 months back, one phone call blew all that up. Evelyn's voice, shaking with pure dread, was a call for backup Claire couldn't ignore. That one desperate plea lit a fire under her that burned brighter than her own self-preservation. Showing up now, she feels like a ghost at a Bouget illusion, her plain Jane reality clashing with all this glittering, fake wealth. The air itself is thick with a level of privilege she's never seen, making her feel small, out of place, and totally on her own. The perfect unity of the guests creates a wall, trapping Claire in her own bubble. She tries her best to fade into the background, a survival skill she picked up as a kid. When Evelyn finally appears, it's like a gasp of fresh air in a vacuum, but the relief sours almost instantly. Evelyn is a gorgeous, tragic contradiction. Her face is flawless, but her eyes are haunted by trauma. Her smile is a hollow mask, and her skin is freezing, chilled by some unseen constant fear. Her first words are a loyalty test, quickly followed by a weak denial of the horror written all over her face. Claire's gut is screaming a truth she can't accept. This isn't wedding jitters. This is a sacrifice in the making. Let's call a spade a spade. It's terror. When Claire asks about the groom, Leon, a muscle in Evelyn's jaw, jumps as she stumbles over her words. She calls the marriage a cold, hard deal, a merger of power and money, while her eyes dart around the room, always looking for a threat. Her begging Claire to stay close is a silent scream for help before a handler swoops in. Evelyn's last panicked look is a distress signal that goes nowhere, a flare that's put out before anyone can see it. A sick feeling twists in Claire's stomach. During the ceremony, the contrast is disgusting. The perfect, elegant setting against Evelyn's hands shaking uncontrollably as the ring, a perfect golden handcuff, is slid onto her finger. The shaking doesn't stop as the groom, Leon Moretti, finishes the ceremony, his hand closing on the back of her neck, not like a lover, but like an owner. His face looks like it's carved from stone. His suit a suit of armor. The look he gives his new wife has zero affection, only the smug satisfaction of a new purchase, the mark of a true predator. Claire fights back a wave of sickness. In that moment, Evelyn just checks out, her eyes glazing over, her face becoming a beautiful, empty mask. The reception is a stage play of fake happiness where every smile is monitored. From a dark corner, Claire watches them, zeroed in on the couple. The abuser, Leon, keeps his arm glued around Evelyn, a constant physical reminder of his ownership. He's chatting with some old guy, while Evelyn is basically a walking corpse, her face completely blank. Then, a new guy walks up to Claire's table, a man in his early 30s. He's a walking contradiction, with a friendly smile and eyes that scan and analyze everything. He introduces himself as Vincent Moretti, the groom's cousin. Claire's defenses shoot up immediately. When he asks what she thinks of the wedding, she feeds him a prepackaged lie. Vincent sees right through it, and Claire's heart starts pounding. He notes that her real concern is a rare thing in this palace of perfect lies. Claire tries to spin another story, which he seems to buy, letting it drop. We outsiders have to stick together, he says before leaving, a weird offer of an alliance. The fake party drags on. Claire watches Evelyn's stiff posture and plastered-on smile during the first dance, a public performance of her surrender. Hitting her limit, Claire ducks out of the ballroom to find her. She discovers Evelyn standing alone, staring into a dark window, a picture of absolute misery. Evelyn's first panicked words aren't about needing comfort, but about the fear of being found, proving she's under constant watch. Claire's blunt question finally breaks the act, and Evelyn just collapses, all the tension draining out of her in a quiet surrender. The story spills out in a voice totally drained of life. The marriage was a payment. Her father was in deep with Leon's family, and the other option was 6 feet under. The floor drops out from under Claire. Evelyn talks about being trapped, like the walls are unbreakable, the lock impossible to pick. She lets out a harsh, ugly laugh when Claire suggests calling the cops, showing how certain she is that Leon is above the law. The chain around her neck is a direct threat to her father's life. Then, in a classic move, she tries to save her friend by pushing her away, telling Claire to run, forget her, and leave her in the dark. But Claire wasn't about to let go. "We have to do something." The door flies open. It's Leon. His face is friendly, but his eyes are like diamonds. "There you are. Our guests are asking for you." Evelyn's whole vibe changes in a nanosecond. The terror vanishes, replaced by a brittle, perfect smile. "Of course, I was just saying goodbye to Claire. She's leaving." "Is she?" Leon's focus snaps to Claire. "A shame. The party's just getting started." "I have to get back to my hotel," Claire says, her voice tight. "I have an early flight." "Nonsense." Leon steps into the room. "You're Evelyn's best friend. You must stay the night. We have plenty of room." "It's not a question. It's an order." "That's very kind," Claire answers carefully. "But I've already got a room." "I insist." Leon's smile doesn't move. "Evelyn would be devastated if I allowed such a breach of hospitality." "Right, my love." Evelyn gives a tiny nod, refusing to look at Claire. Then that settles it. Offering Evelyn his arm, Leon says, "We should go back. They're serving the next course." She takes it, and as they walk past Claire, Evelyn whispers, "I am so sorry," before they disappear. Claire is left alone in the room, a low-key tremor running through her. The only sane thing to do is bolt, find a door, call a car, and vanish. But the image of Evelyn's face, the pure, unfiltered fear in her eyes, is burned into her brain. She can't ditch her. Claire starts moving, skipping the main hall and diving into the mansion's side arteries, trying to get her bearings in the massive maze of hallways and locked doors. She walks past staff who barely glance at her. Lost and looking for an exit, she turns a corner and slams right into Vincent Moretti. "Easy there!" His hand shoots out, grabbing her elbow. "Watch your step." "Sorry." Claire pulls away instantly. Vincent's eyes scan her face. "You look like you've seen a ghost." I'm just a little turned around. I was trying to find an exit. Vincent's face is a total blank. That can be a challenge in this place. A cold ball of fear tightens in Claire's gut. What are you trying to say? This way. He points to another door. We need to talk privately. Every cell in her body screams run, but Vincent is already moving and she's completely lost. She follows. He leads her into a small, dusty library lined with what seem like priceless, ancient books. He shuts the door and leans against it, blocking the only way out. You're trying to figure out if you can trust me, he says. Claire says nothing. Smart move. Trust is a dangerous thing in this family. Still, I'm going to give you some advice because I saw your face when you were watching Evelyn during the ceremony. I'm worried about her, Claire says, her voice low. Then get this. Leon's marriage to Evelyn isn't about love. It's a business deal to clear her father's debt and flex his own power. This is how the family operates. Everything is a transaction. Everyone is either an asset or a liability. So why are you telling me all this? Because you're about to become a major problem. Vincent steps away from the door, pacing the tiny room like a caged tiger. Leon doesn't do loose ends, and you, Claire Bennett, are the biggest loose end of them all. You know way too much. You feel way too much, and you are not part of the family. Claire's mouth goes bone dry. I'm leaving tomorrow. No, you're not. Those words hang in the air like a death sentence. What are you talking about? The question is barely a whisper. Vincent stops dead, his eyes locking onto hers. Leon has guys watching you. You really think you could just waltz out of here, hop in a cab, and go home? Not gonna happen. Leon found a use for you. A use for what? Leverage. A muscle in Vincent's jaw clenches. Over Evelyn. With you here, she'll behave. She won't run. She won't fight back. She knows if she does, you're the one who pays the price. The floor seems to tilt under Claire's feet. No, that's insane. I'm a nobody. You're her best friend. That makes you the most important person in this house. Vincent leans in, his voice a low, intense hiss. Listen to me. When they come for you, and they're coming soon, you don't fight. You don't make a scene. You go with them. How well you cooperate decides how well you're treated. You want me to just let them take me? I want you to stay alive? Claire's breathing hitches into panicked little gasps. This feels like some kind of nightmare. It was supposed to be a wedding, a quick trip. She was meant to be back at her boring job, her quiet life, by Monday. I need to call someone, she choked out. I have to— Who? Vincent lets out a humorless laugh. The staff, they work for Leon. The guests, they're either his family or too scared to breathe wrong. The police, they're on his payroll. He backs away, his entire body screaming that this is a done deal. Nobody's coming to save you, Claire. It's just you and the choices you make right now. Before she can even answer, heavy footsteps echo down the hall. Vincent grabs her arm. Remember what I said, don't fight. He disappears through a side door she hadn't even seen, leaving Claire completely alone as the main library door swings open. Two massive dudes walk in, their suits screaming about the hardware hidden underneath. One of them flashes a smile that's all teeth, zero warmth. Miss Bennett, he says, Mr. Moretti would like a word. Claire's hands ball into fists. I was just heading back to the party. Change of plans. The guy gestures down the hallway. If you'll come with us? Every single instinct is screaming at her to bolt, but there's nowhere to go. She pictures Evelyn's face, replays Vincent's warning in her head, and starts walking. They don't take her back to the ballroom. Instead, they lead her deeper into the mansion, down a corridor she doesn't recognize, toward a huge, dark wooden door at the very end. One of the goons knocks twice. "Enter," Leon's voice commands. The door swings open. The room is a classic boss study: dark wood, rich leather, and shelves lined with books and expensive booze. Leon is sitting behind a massive desk, jacket off, tie loosened. He looks totally at ease. "Claire." He points to the chair across from him. "Please, sit." Claire stays put. "What is going on?" "Sit down." "It's not a request, it's an order." She sits. He pours himself a drink, completely ignoring her. "I understand you and Evelyn are pretty tight." "We're friends." "My intel says you're best friends." Leon takes a sip, his eyes drilling into her over the rim of the glass. "She tells you things." Claire says nothing. "That's a valuable thing," Leon continues. "Trust, loyalty. Evelyn doesn't have much of that. Just you." "If you hurt her," Leon raises an eyebrow. "I just married her. Why would I hurt my own wife?" "Then let me go." "That's not going to happen." The casual way he says it sends a bolt of pure ice through Claire's veins. "You have no right to keep me here," she says, her voice shaking just a little. "People know I'm here, my job, my family. They'll report me missing." "Will they?" Leon leans back in his chair. "Your file says you live alone. You've got a quiet admin job. Your parents are gone. No siblings, no partner." He smirks when he sees her face fall. "I do my homework, Claire. You're a ghost. No one's even going to file a report." The walls of the room feel like they're closing in. "What do you want from me?" she whispers. "I want you to stay here, be a friend to Evelyn, support her, help her adjust to her new life." Leon puts his glass down. "In return, you'll live very well. Nice room, good food, anything you want. Your only job is to be a good girl." "And if I say no?" His face doesn't change, but his eyes go flat and dead. "Then Evelyn will be upset, and you will be upset, and things will get very unpleasant for everyone." He gets up and puts on his jacket. "But you're a smart woman. You'll make the right choice." He walks to the door, pausing beside her. "You'll be shown to your room. Get some rest. We'll go over the rules tomorrow." And then he's gone. Claire just sits there, frozen, her brain short-circuiting as her reality shatters. This wasn't supposed to happen. Not to someone like her, not in real life. But the locked door, the guards posted outside, the pure terror she saw on Evelyn's face. It was all horribly real. She was a prisoner. She just stood there. The room they put her in was beautiful in a way that made her want to scream. A giant 4-poster bed, carpets that swallowed every sound, and windows looking out over perfect gardens. It would have been an amazing room if the windows weren't sealed shut and a guard wasn't standing right outside her door. Claire stood frozen in her navy dress, choking back the scream clawing its way up her throat. She needed a plan, a way out of this 5-star prison, but she didn't know the layout, had no idea about security, and her phone was gone. They'd taken her purse. She was completely, utterly alone. A soft knock makes her jump. "Come in," she says, her voice surprisingly steady. The door opens. It's Evelyn, looking like a ghost in her wedding gown, and she locks the door behind her. "I can't stay," she whispers. "Leon's with his family, but he'll notice if I'm gone too long." Evelyn closes the distance between them, grabbing Claire's hands. We have to get out of here, she pleads, but the hope dies in her eyes just as fast. No, we can't. As Claire starts to argue, Evelyn's voice breaks. I tried to run. Before the ceremony, they caught me, and they made me watch what they did to the people who helped me. I can't go through that again. What do we do? Tears stream down her face. We survive. That's all we can do. We survive. We watch, and maybe someday. She can't even finish the thought. I'm so sorry I dragged you into this. I just wanted one last normal day before. Her voice just fades out. Claire pulls her into a hug, and Evelyn just collapses against her, shaking with silent, brutal sobs. We'll find a way, Claire swears, with no clue how. There's always a way, I promise. Evelyn pulls back, wiping her eyes. I have to go. If Leon finds me here, go. It's okay. At the door, Evelyn stops, one last haunted look on her face. The days here are one of two things. They're either bearable or they're hell. She breathes out. On the bearable days, you get a little freedom. On the bad days, she lets the threat hang in the air. Just do everything they say, Claire. Please, don't fight them. Don't try to be a hero. Just survive. And with that, she's gone. The silence in the room slams down on Claire, her heart hammering against her ribs. Survive. The mission had changed. It wasn't about escape. It wasn't about rescue. It was just about breathing. She walks to the window, pressing her hand against the cold glass. Night has totally swallowed the estate, turning the mountains into jagged black teeth. Down in the valley, a world she couldn't get back to glittered like a distant galaxy. Claire closes her eyes, her breath shaky, thinking of her old life. Her apartment, her books, her job, the quiet, normal rhythm of it all. A life she would kill to have back. A life stolen by a man who collected people like they were objects. Then, a new, colder thought clicks into place. Leon had done his homework. He totally figured she was a ghost, a loner nobody would ever look for. He picked her specifically because she tried to be invisible, meaning her vanishing act wouldn't make a single ripple. But Claire opened her eyes, and oh boy. If Leon thought quiet meant weak, he was dead wrong. If he expected her to crack, he was in for a very long wait. She had zero plans, no big strategy, but she was getting them both out of this hellhole. For now, the mission was simple: stay alive and wait for an opening. Dawn broke with zero drama. Claire hadn't slept a wink, just paced all night, cooking up and scrapping useless plans. When that first gray light hit, she felt totally drained. Then, a knock. Miss Bennet? A woman's voice, cold and sharp. Breakfast is ready. They're waiting for you downstairs. Please get dressed. Claire looked down at her clothes. Yesterday's dress was a complete wreck. I don't have anything else, she yelled back. Check the wardrobe. Claire swung open the closet doors. It was loaded with designer gear. Dresses, tops, pants, all her size, all way too fancy for her budget. A wave of sickness hit her. This was all part of his sick game. She grabbed a simple gray dress and a white cardigan, threw them on, and opened the door. The woman was older, maybe 50, with sharp eyes and a professional, detached vibe. I'm Mrs. Kovacs, the housekeeper. Follow me. She led Claire into a sunny breakfast room. Leon sat at the head of the table, flipping through a newspaper. He looked up when she walked in and smiled. Good morning, Claire. I hope you slept well. Claire said nothing. His smile evaporated. Sit, eat. We need to talk. She picked a chair at the far end of the long table. Mrs. Kovacs poured her coffee and set down a plate. Fear was twisting her insides, but Claire was starving, her body's need for food shutting down her emotions. She nibbled on a pastry as Leon stared her down. "The rules are simple," he said. "You're my ward, and you're always being watched. The estate is your whole world. You don't step a foot outside it. You'll show up for family meals when I say, and you'll be Evelyn's companion. All outside contact is cut off. And if I refuse? Refusing means you lose all privileges. This room becomes a jail cell, and your freedom to move is gone. And Evelyn, she'll pay for your defiance." Leon put his paper down. "But you won't refuse. You get how this works, and your loyalty to your friend is your new leash." Claire dropped the croissant. "For how long? How long is what? How long am I stuck in this place?" Leon paused. "Your own behavior decides that. Play along, and this will be tolerable. Fight back, and it will be a nightmare. As for when you leave," he just shrugged. "That's up to me." The casual tyranny in his voice was suffocating. "You can't do this," she whispered, her voice shaking. "This is insane. You can't just kidnap people." "I can do exactly what I want, Claire." Leon's tone was pure ice. "The faster you accept that, the easier this is for everyone." He stood up, fixing his jacket. "Evelyn will be down for lunch. Until then, get to know the place. Think of it as your new reality." He left her there with her cold coffee and the smoldering ruins of her life. Time started to blur into a boring loop. Claire learned the rigid rhythm of the estate. Breakfast, sometimes with Leon. Lunch with Evelyn when he allowed it. Dinner, a super tense meal with the entire creepy family and their associates. She became a master at being invisible, speaking only when spoken to, making herself as small as possible. It was, as Evelyn said, a master class in survival. Some days were better than others. Good days were spent alone. On bad days, Lan's mood was a storm system that threatened the whole house. Claire watched. She listened and she learned. She clocked Vincent's nightly appearances, his polite but distant act a perfectly built wall. She figured out that Leon's uncle, Marcello, was the real boss running the family's shady business. She realized the staff were silent witnesses to everything and that there was no easy way out. The estate was a straight-up fortress, locked down with walls and gates and crawling with guards and cameras at every angle. Beyond that was miles of brutal mountain wilderness. Still, she watched, waiting for a crack in their armor. She had to be ready. 3 weeks after the wedding, Vincent found her in the library. It had become her afternoon hideout, a quiet spot with no guards where books offered a quick escape. "You're quite the bookworm," Vincent said, sinking into the chair across from her. Claire marked her page. "Not much else to do around here." "You could try to escape." Claire's heart slammed against her ribs. "Is this some kind of interrogation?" "No, just an observation." Vincent leaned back, his eyes sizing her up. "Most people in your shoes would have made a run for it by now, but you're just waiting." "Because my gut says I wouldn't get 10 feet. A tiny smirk appeared on Vincent's face. "Your gut is right." A long silence stretched between them. "Why are you even here?" Claire finally asked. "At this estate, you don't belong." "I don't," Vincent agreed, his face hardening. "But blood is a chain, and this family doesn't let people go." "So, we're both prisoners then." Vincent let out a short, humorless laugh. "Yeah, I guess that's what we are." He started to get up but stopped. "For what it's worth, you're handling this better than most would." "It doesn't feel like I'm handling it at all." That's how survival works. You don't know you're doing it until you look back and see you're still standing. He turned to leave, then paused again. The groundskeeper forgets to lock the south gate on Thursdays, around midnight, just so you know. Claire's heart was pounding. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm sick of watching this family destroy things, he said. And because you remind me of someone I used to know, someone who deserved a better ending. Vincent's jaw clenched. Now you have the information. Then he was gone. Claire sat frozen, the book in her lap, feeling like a dead weight. His words echoed in her head, laying out a clear shot. Thursday midnight South Gate. It was probably a setup, but it was also the first ray of hope she'd seen since her world collapsed into this prison. She saw Evelyn's face, followed by the cold memory of Leon's threat to make her suffer for any misstep. Her old life felt like a ghost story. Thursday was in 2 days. 48 hours to figure out if this was a brave move or a death march. That Wednesday night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, breaking down the escape plan. The risk was off the charts. Vincent could be setting a trap. Even if the gate was open, what was on the other side? She'd be lost in the unforgiving night, and getting caught was almost a guarantee. But the idea of being locked up forever, of watching Evelyn's spirit get crushed, was a much bigger nightmare. So Thursday hits and the plan is locked in. She's making a break for it. Breakfast is tense AF. Leon is glued to his phone, the screen lighting up his ticked-off face. Then Marcello shows up, and whatever they whisper about just cranks Leon's rage dial to 11. Business stuff, Claire asks, cutting the silence. Leon just stares her down. None of your concern. Got it, she says, sipping her coffee. Leon suddenly gets up. I've got meetings all day, don't wait up for dinner. And just like that, he's gone. Claire watches him leave, a timer starting in her head. His distraction is the perfect crack in the wall of her prison. The rest of the day, she's a ghost, even at lunch with Evelyn, who looks totally wrecked with dark circles under her eyes. You sleeping at all? Claire asks. Not really. Evelyn just pokes at her food. Leon's on edge. Some deal went south. I don't have the details, but his mood says, stay away. Did he hurt you? Evelyn's silence was a freaking bullhorn. Claire grabs her hand. I'm getting us out of this place. Claire, no, Evelyn begs, her grip getting desperate. I know what you're thinking. Don't. They'll find you. They always do. But what if not this time? They will, Evelyn's voice shakes. And when they catch you, Leon will make an example out of us. I can't watch that happen. Claire kept the secret about the gate to herself. If she failed, Evelyn's ignorance was her only shield. It was just a thought, Claire lied, the words tasting like ash. I'm not doing anything. Evelyn didn't look convinced, but let go. That afternoon, Claire went back to her room and started prepping. Every move had to be invisible. She slid leggings under her skirt and a thin tee under her blouse, creating a low-key escape outfit. She shoved a tiny water bottle into her cardigan pocket, a small piece of the outside world she was fighting for. At dinner, she was completely alone. The massive dining room just made Leon's absence feel louder. Mrs. Kovac served the food, her face a mask of pure professionalism. Is Mr. Moretti coming back tonight? Claire tested the waters. That's above my pay grade, miss. Claire just nodded, faking like she was hungry. When Mrs. Kovac came back, Claire made her move. I'm not feeling great. I think I'll just turn in early. The housekeeper's eyes narrowed just a little. Should I get the doctor? No, just tired. If you say so. Mrs. Kovach cleared the plates. Rest well, miss. Claire walked to her room, shut the door, and the wait began. Slowly, the huge house went quiet around her. The usual background noise faded out. By 11, it was dead silent. She changed into her getaway clothes, black pants and a dark sweater, straight up shadow gear. She left one lamp on and piled pillows under the blanket to look like she was sleeping. Cracking the door open, she listened to the absolute silence. Then she slipped out into the hall, moving like a shadow. Her room was in the east wing. The gate was clear on the other side of the property, a huge trek across the main floor. The hallway was a tunnel of dim lights and deep shadows. Claire plastered herself to the wall, her heart hammering so loud she was sure someone could hear it. She made it to the grand staircase without being spotted. But down below was the marble foyer, and right next to it, a security station, a total dead end. Claire melted back into the shadows, backtracking to find a service staircase. It was a tight, dark passage that led down to the kitchens. From there, she could get to the garden door. A floorboard creaked under her weight. Claire's entire body screamed at her to run, but the crushing silence of the mansion forced her to stay disciplined. She kept going. She snuck through the empty kitchen and got to the garden door, another locked barrier reminding her she was a prisoner. A wave of panic hit her, but she pushed it down and started looking for a way out. Her fingers brushed against a keyring, and the fifth one she tried actually turned the lock, opening her path into the cold night. She didn't just bolt randomly. She ran through a garden she had already memorized, a mental map to her freedom. A guard's flashlight sliced through the dark. For a terrifying second, her entire fate depended on him not looking her way. As soon as the guard moved on, Claire was moving again. The south gate loomed ahead, a skeletal promise of escape, its iron bars wrapped in ivy. The padlock was hanging open, just like Vincent said it would be, proof that his loyalty was busted. She was about to grab it when a voice sliced through the night. It was Vincent, a shadow taking human form about 10 feet away, asking where she was headed. He confirmed he set it up, but was now acting like it could be a trap, totally testing her nerve. Her answer was simple. She knew the risks and didn't care. Being desperate was a bigger motivator than being scared. Vincent just watched her for a second, then pulled out a phone. An unexpected piece of survival gear. He gave her quick directions to a ranger station and an emergency line, a direct link to the real world. When Claire gave him a questioning look, he laid it all out. He was completely done with the family's endless cycle of destruction. This was him quitting. He shoved the phone into her hand and told her to run before he could change his mind. When she brought up Evelyn, he hit her with some cold, hard logic that Claire was zero help to her friend as a prisoner. He brushed off the danger to himself, saying he had a believable story where he was just the guy who failed to catch her. With a final go, their short-lived team-up was over. Claire vanished into the woods. Adrenaline totally wiped out her fear as she sprinted. The only thing in her brain was the ranger station. 2 miles. Then she heard shouting from behind. They'd found the open gate. She pushed harder. On the rough trail, she flicked on the phone's flashlight. A huge mistake that ruined her night vision. Plunging back into the dark, she felt her lungs and legs burning. At this point, pure terror was the only thing keeping her going. As the trail dipped down, she tripped and went down hard, shredding her palms on the sharp gravel. She choked back a scream and forced herself up. The hunters were closer now, their voices tightening the trap. Hope started to die as her body screamed for her to stop, making getting caught feel like a sure thing. But then, through a gap in the trees, she saw a clearing and a small cabin, the ranger station. One last insane burst of energy shot her forward and inside. The air was stale, and the sudden glare of a fluorescent light was brutal. Her eyes locked onto her target, a red emergency radio box on the wall. She ripped it open and snatched the handset. She heard a dial tone, a ring, and then a voice. The words just poured out of her in a rush. She'd been kidnapped. Her name was Claire Bennett, and her captor was Leon Moretti. She was in the middle of begging for help when the door exploded off its hinges. 2 guards grabbed her, their strength easily overpowering her. One of them tore the phone out of her hand, cutting off her only lifeline. A hand clamped over her mouth to muffle her scream as Leon appeared, looking less angry and more like he was just annoyed by a problem he had to fix. He gave a quiet order. They dragged her to a car that was already running. Inside, Leon sat next to her with his goons up front. As the car drove back up to the estate, he started to clinically pick apart her failed escape. He asked why she even bothered, not actually wanting an answer. He told her the emergency call, while logged, would be written off as a prank and the data wiped. When she pointed out they had her name, he just shrugged, saying it was useless information that would vanish into the system. The guy was a complete sociopath. He laid out how he owned the local cops, confirming her call for help was intercepted and deleted, a blow that absolutely shattered her last bit of hope. Leon then called out Vincent's role in the escape, calling it a predictable moment of weakness. Claire couldn't help but flinch when she heard Vincent's name, a silent plea for his life, which Leon answered with a smile that screamed revenge. Changing the subject from Vincent's guaranteed punishment, he started messing with her head. He mentioned how Evelyn was already blaming herself, a guilt trip that was now all on Claire. Her immediate plea to keep Evelyn safe was met with his promise that only Claire would pay the price. "But you," he said, his smile getting wider, "are a completely different story." Back at the house, they didn't take her to her room. They took her deep underground. The cell was designed for sensory deprivation, a concrete box with no windows, just a cot and a bucket. The heavy door slammed shut, sealing her in. Leon watched her reaction as he explained the new rules. She would stay there until he decided she'd learned her lesson. Food would come twice a day, but light, sound, and any human contact were off the table. She was sentenced to be alone with her failure. When she asked for how long, he didn't answer. He just shut the door, and her world went completely black, a textbook move for shattering a person's spirit. In the complete darkness, Claire's sense of time completely vanished, which was exactly what they wanted. The only thing that marked the days was a food tray shoved through a slot twice a day. Her life became a cycle of sleeping from exhaustion and pacing like a caged animal, her brain replaying the failed escape. A horrifying thought took root. Leon had set the whole thing up, giving her a taste of hope just so he could enjoy snatching it away. It was a masterclass in psychological torture. After what felt like an eternity, the door finally opened. The sudden light was like a punch to the face. A guard was silhouetted in the doorway, giving her short commands. Claire's muscles had completely quit on her. She needed his help just to get to her feet. A guard hauls her to the main house, where the light is so bright it makes her dizzy. She's thrown in a bathroom and given 15 minutes to get clean and change. The locked door makes it pretty clear she's got no say in this. In the mirror, she sees a pale, stressed-out stranger with dead eyes. She gets it done. The new clothes are bland. Then it's off to the dining room, where the boss, Leon, is eating. He points to a chair, and she sits down like a puppet. After a silent stare down, he asks if her little re-education is over. Her whispered yes is the sound of her entire spirit getting curb-stomped. Good. Leon takes a sip of his coffee. I'm allowing you a supervised visit with Evelyn. Claire's head snaps up at the name. He confirms her friend isn't physically hurt, but is a complete emotional wreck, and then pins all the blame for it on Claire. The guilt hits her like a ton of bricks. Leon says she can see Evelyn, but only after she cleans her plate. Then he lays down the new rules: 24/7 surveillance, lockdown at night, and next time she tries something, the consequences will be way, way worse. Her quiet agreement gets a sharp mean it as he twists the narrative to make his cruelty seem like a justified reaction. She needs you here. You keep her docile, which makes my life easier. Your comfort is just a perk for me. But if I have to pick between that perk and your obedience, I'm picking obedience every time. I won't try to escape again, Claire chokes out. The words a total surrender. I know, Leon replies with a thin, nasty smile. You get the price now. He leaves her there. She survived, yeah, but her fight is gone, completely dismantled. Evelyn is waiting in the parlor. The second she sees Claire, she just crumples with relief, and they grab each other in a desperate hug. This is my fault, Evelyn cries. I should have stopped you. No, Claire cuts her off, turning to face her. You have zero blame in this. This was my choice, my mistake. Leon told me you were in the basement. He wouldn't let me see you. He said I had to wait until you were re-educated. Evelyn's voice breaks. I was so scared. I'm fine now. I'm here. They sit, hands clutched together, while Claire's guard stands there like a gargoyle. Did he hurt you? Evelyn whispers. No, just locked me up. And Vincent? A cold dread fills Claire's gut. What about him? Leon fired him, said he was disloyal, that he helped you. Tears stream down Evelyn's face. Is it true? Claire's throat closes up. Vincent gave up everything. He mentioned the gate, she admits. But I pushed him. He tried to stop me. It's a total lie, but it's the only cover she can give him. Leon's been paranoid since you ran, Evelyn adds. He thinks there's a rat in the family. He's been interrogating everyone. It's been an absolute nightmare. I'm so sorry. The words feel cheap and useless. You tried to run, Evelyn says. You got closer than anyone I've ever seen. For a second, I thought you'd actually do it. I failed. True, but you tried. That's a hell of a lot more than I've ever done. A heavy silence falls over them, both just suffocating in their gilded cage. What happens to us now? Claire finally asks. We endure, Evelyn answers, her voice hollow. It's the only option. Claire wants to scream, to fight for more than just surviving, but the memory of that dark cellar taught her what hope costs. She just squeezes her friend's hand and says nothing. The weeks that follow set a new, bleak normal. Claire is never alone. A guard is her shadow. At night, her door is locked from the outside. Her new room has iron bars. She's more of a prisoner than ever, playing the part Leon wants. Silent, obedient, and totally broken. She ate with Evelyn, organized library books, and made appearances at dinner. A ghost in the halls, she only spoke when someone spoke to her first. Leon seemed satisfied. The fire she had during her escape was gone. She was just another one of his pretty things, on display but ignored. Claire let him enjoy his little fantasy of victory. But alone in her cell, she replayed Vincent's words, remembering how ridiculously close she got to freedom. Failing taught her one thing. She was way stronger than any of them knew, and that was going to matter. 2 months after the incident, Evelyn walks into lunch with news. "I'm pregnant," she says softly, a hand on her stomach. All the air leaves Claire's body. "Does Leon know?" "I told him this morning. He's pleased." Evelyn's smile doesn't reach her eyes. "He wants an heir. This will keep him happy." "And how do you feel?" A long pause hangs between them. "I'm terrified," she finally confesses. "I don't want to have a baby in this house, in his world, but I have no choice." Claire reaches across the table and takes her hand. "You're going to be a fantastic mother." "Am I?" Evelyn's voice is shaky. "How can I protect a child when I can't even protect myself?" "You'll find a way. We both will." It was a promise Claire had no idea how to keep, but she said it anyway because sometimes promises are all you have. The pregnancy changed everything and nothing. Leon got softer with Evelyn for the first few months, touching her stomach at dinner, his voice losing its edge. Claire watched with a cold chill, knowing it wasn't love, it was ownership. Leon didn't care about Evelyn, just the legacy growing inside her. As the months passed, Evelyn retreated into a shell. She stopped looking at Claire. Doctor's orders put her on bed rest, leaving Claire to sit with a guard in the library or eat alone. The house felt bigger, emptier. 3 months into the pregnancy, Evelyn had her first major scare. Claire was reading when Mrs. Kovach appeared in the library doorway like a grim reaper. "Miss Bennet, Mrs. Moretti was taken to the hospital. Mr. Moretti wanted you to know." The book slipped out of Claire's hands. "Is she okay? What happened?" "A hemorrhage. The doctors are with her now." Claire shot out of her chair. "I have to go to her." "That's not possible." "I don't care what's possible. She's my friend and I need to." "Mr. Moretti's orders were very clear. You will stay here." The guard by the door shifted his weight, his hand casually brushing his weapon in a clear threat. Claire's hands balled into fists. "Then at least find out how she is. I'm begging you." Mrs. Kovach's stone-cold face softened just a tiny bit. "I will tell you when I have news." Then she vanished. Claire fell back into her chair, her heart pounding. She tried to read, but the words were a blur. She paced. She sat. The guard just watched, his expression blank as the hours crawled by. Near midnight, Mrs. Kovach returned. "Mrs. Moretti's condition is stable. The baby is unharmed. She's being kept for observation. The doctors expect a full recovery." The relief that hit Claire was so strong she had to grab the chair to stay upright. "Thank you. Mr. Moretti is bringing her home tomorrow. You'll be allowed to see her then." Claire could only nod, a lump in her throat. That night, locked in her room, she finally let herself break down and cry. For Evelyn, for the kid about to be born into this prison, and for herself, stuck watching her friend suffer, completely powerless. Evelyn came home the next afternoon looking pale and drained. Leon was glued to her side, playing the worried husband for the doctor. Claire hung back and waited. When a phone call finally pulled Leon away, she rushed over. "I'm fine," Evelyn whispered before she could ask. "It was just some spotting. The doctor said it can happen." "Are you sure?" "I'm sure." Evelyn put a hand on her stomach. "The baby is strong, has a good heartbeat, everything is perfectly fine." But the last word caught in her throat. Claire slid a chair over. You don't have to put on a show for me." And with that, Evelyn's composure just crumbled. I thought I was losing the baby. For hours, I actually believed this whole nightmare was about to end. Guilt washed over her face. Then I hated myself for thinking it, because none of this is the baby's fault. No, it definitely isn't. What kind of monster thinks things like that? The kind who's trapped in a living nightmare. Claire shot back softly. You're allowed to be terrified. You're allowed to wish this wasn't your life. I can't stop thinking about what happens next. If it's a boy, Leon will just make a clone of himself, a new heir. Evelyn's eyes were swimming with tears. And if it's a girl... She didn't even have to finish the sentence. Claire gripped her hand. We'll handle it, one day at a time. You always say that, but I can't see any way out of this. Claire had nothing to say to that. The pregnancy moved forward. Evelyn's belly grew. Leon brought in a nurse, a tough-as-nails woman named Mrs. Chen became her shadow, a warden reporting Evelyn's every move back to Leon, and in those months, the gap between Claire and Evelyn turned into a chasm. The nurse was a gatekeeper for everything: bed rest, food, stress levels, cutting visits down to quick, supervised meetings where Chen stood by, scribbling on a notepad. It was like watching her friend disappear all over again. Claire's life fell into a deadening rhythm: breakfast, library, lunch, books, dinner, bed. Her personal guard, a quiet guy named Marcus, was a ghost always at her side. She learned to pretend he didn't exist. One afternoon, in the dead silence of the library, her eyes landed on a shelf of art history books. She grabbed a huge volume on the Italian Renaissance, and its pages cracked open to show her these beautiful, intricate worlds. Art was just a minor interest before, an easy A in college. But in this prison, it became her lifeline, something to focus on instead of the locked doors, silent guards, and Evelyn's growing belly. A week later, Leon shattered her quiet refuge among the books. He asked what she was reading, and it was a question loaded with intent. Claire's answer was a shield, a short defense against a man who now only spoke in riddles. "Just reading," she bit out. He picked up a book on Caravaggio she'd been looking at, his lip curling. Good taste. The compliment about her choice was just a twisted jab, a clear reference to her family's own art. He brought up a gallery he was setting up for his buddies, a showcase of all the treasures his dynasty had secured. Claire met this with a brick wall of silence. Then he dropped the bomb, a comment about her college art classes meant to throw her off balance. A cold knot formed in her gut at how much he knew. "I was never any good," she lied, a desperate attempt to get away. He shot back with her own transcript, quoting a top mark and a professor's glowing review. The book in her hands felt like it weighed a ton as the room started to tilt. Then he laid out his proposal. His offer was for her to catalog the family's art, a job he framed as some kind of amazing opportunity. Claire saw right through it. "You want me to work for you?" she asked, her voice completely flat. Leon repackaged this forced labor as an act of kindness, a cure for the boredom he could see in her eyes. The deal was just a fancier cage. She'd get more freedom to roam the estate, but only if she did exactly as he said. It was a classic power move, dressed up to look like a choice. "And what's the catch?" she asked, already knowing the answer. His terms were brutally clear: play ball and get rewarded, try to run or fight back, and she would lose everything. His smile was a thin mask over the raw threat. Her eyes felt the stolen masterpieces in the book, and she agreed. seeing no other way out. The walk to the vault took her right past the room where he'd first locked her up, a sick and calculated reminder of her place in this house. Leon walked her to the vault himself, with Marcus trailing behind them like a silent, hulking guard. He spun some sanitized tale about the collection's history, a load of BS about legitimate purchases mixed with a few unconventional acquisitions, making a legacy of theft sound normal. When the huge steel door swung open, the sight inside literally stole Claire's breath. The room was a massive cavern, a dragon's hoard of priceless art stacked high in the dim light, an insane fortune built on crime. This, Leon announced, was her new office. Her hours were non-negotiable, 8 in the morning until 6 at night, with Marcus standing guard at the door. Walking through the quiet aisles of art, she saw whole eras of history. Renaissance, Baroque, modern, all ripped from their homes and buried in this underground tomb. It was a beautiful graveyard. When she asked where the art came from, Leon gave her a slick answer about a multi-generational family legacy. A thief's nice way of saying they plundered it. Stolen, she thought, hiding the word behind a professional mask. She gave him a list of supplies she'd need, playing her part. He approved it instantly just to show he was the one who had granted her this new purpose. Alone in the vault, the reality of her new job hit her like a truck. She was now the curator for a gangster's loot. But the work itself became an escape. Her days now had a rigid schedule that filled her mind, pushing the fear and misery down. She got started, systematically logging every piece, digging for any shred of its history, and trying to bring order to a palace of stolen chaos. Some pieces came with paperwork, but a ton of them were total mysteries. The ghosts, she realized, the ones that were ripped off. She pushed the idea down, focusing on the task. A new routine kicked in. Inventory all morning, research all afternoon, then back to her room every night in a fog of exhaustion. She barely saw Evelyn anymore, whose tough pregnancy had her on total lockdown. The few times they talked, it was all surface-level stuff, carefully dancing around the baby or what came next. Evelyn looked like a ghost, and her claims of being fine were obviously a lie. One afternoon, while checking out a small portrait, Claire's fingers brushed against something wrong. A weird little bump on the frame's texture. The back of the frame felt way too new. She carefully worked the painting out of its setting and found the proof. A modern panel attached with a nearly invisible seam. Fired up by an old instinct, a flicker of the person she used to be, she gently pried the backing off. Tucked inside was a folded piece of paper. When she opened it, she found a letter written in Italian dated 15 years ago. Her college language skills were good enough to get the gist. It was a daughter's heartbreaking letter begging for the painting's return. A piece stolen from her dead mother's house. A sick feeling rolled through her stomach. She carefully put the frame back together, but her world had completely shifted. These weren't just things anymore. They were open wounds, each one a monument to someone's personal tragedy, a story of devastating loss. That discovery turned her work from a simple survival tactic into straight-up complicity. She was now organizing the evidence of Leon's crimes. "Everything okay?" The guard's voice, Marcus's, snapped her out of it. "Fine," she lied, the automatic response of a prisoner. He backed off. She went back to her work, seeing no other option. Evelyn went into labor on a Tuesday. The housekeeper's panicked announcement sent Claire flying upstairs, only to be blocked by the ice-cold Mrs. Chen. Family only, the nurse said, her voice like stone. Claire's desperate plea, "I'm her best friend," hit a wall of professional indifference as the door shut in her face. Stranded in the hall, all she could hear were muffled screams of Evelyn's pain, a storm of helpless rage building inside her. When Marcus told her to go back to her room, she just said no, planting herself on the floor in quiet rebellion. "I don't care what Mr. Moretti wants," she stated, her words a tiny, sharp weapon against a mountain of power. She saw a flicker of something in the guard's eyes before he just took up a post nearby, becoming a silent witness. The hours smeared together as she kept her useless watch, digging her nails into her palms until they drew blood. She soaked in the awful symphony of pain until, just before dawn, it was broken by the tiny, piercing wail of a newborn baby. When the doctor finally emerged, his face a mask of exhaustion, he gave her the news: a healthy baby girl. The word set off a car crash of relief and dread. Relief that Evelyn was alive, and pure agony for the little girl born into this hell. She mourned for a daughter who was now just another one of Leon's possessions. The doctor let her have a few minutes inside. Evelyn looked pale and drained, but her eyes were sharp. The baby was cradled in her arms. "Claire," was the first thing she said. Claire went to the bed and looked at the tiny baby named Layla. Then Evelyn dropped the bomb, her laugh sounding broken and empty. "Leon wanted a son." That narcissistic wound explained everything. "Then he's an idiot," Claire said, the only comfort she could offer. Evelyn's terror was so thick you could feel it in the air, fear for a child she couldn't protect. "We'll figure this out together," Claire promised, but the old words felt fragile now. But as she looked down at Layla, her own resolve hardened into pure steel. Just as expected, Leon stayed away, his disappointment creating a cold vacuum around the new mother and her child. Leon's visits were short and sweet. He'd stare at the baby, Layla, with a look nobody could read. Then he'd just leave. Maybe it was disappointment, or maybe he just hated the chaos a newborn brings. His distance, though, gave Evelyn a little breathing room. Claire spent every spare second with them, helping with feedings and all the nonstop baby chores. Evelyn was coming apart at the seams, so exhausted it was like she was sick. "I can't do this," she confessed one night, rocking a screaming Layla. "I'm so tired, she won't stop crying. I don't know what she wants." "You're doing great," Claire insisted, taking the baby. "You're just wiped out. Let me." Claire paced the room, rocking with a steady rhythm until Layla's cries faded to whimpers, and then silence, her little body finally relaxing against Claire's shoulder. Claire looked down at the tiny, innocent face. "I am so sorry," she whispered. "I'm so sorry this is the world you came into." Layla yawned. And in that one quiet moment, Claire felt something inside her completely change. A savage, all-consuming love kicked in. As terrifying as it was total, she hadn't busted Evelyn out, hadn't pulled off some grand escape. She'd bombed every single attempt. But this she could do. She could keep this kid safe. It was the only mission left that mattered. The next few months were a total blur. Layla got bigger, started smiling, and knew who they were. Evelyn's body healed, but her spirit just checked out. Leon was a ghost, sucked into business that had him gone for weeks. Claire went back to the vault, logging stolen lives on a screen, walling off her brain from what she was actually doing. They just survived. That was the best they could manage. Then one afternoon, 18 months after Layla was born, Leon summoned Claire to his study. She went, her heart hammering with pure dread. He was at his desk, looking wrecked. He had new lines around his eyes, and silver was creeping into his dark hair. "Take a seat," he ordered. She did. "We've got some family drama," Leon said, cutting right to the chase. "An internal power play. My Uncle Marcello thinks I'm too soft, too focused on legit businesses instead of our usual work. He's not the only one." Claire said nothing. "It's gonna get a lot worse before it gets better, and when it does, this house might not be safe anymore." Leon leaned back. "I'm telling you this because you've proven you're useful. Your work is meticulous. You've earned a sliver of my trust." "What do you need from me?" Claire asked. "If I die, I want your word you'll stay with Evelyn and Layla, that you'll help them, protect them." Claire just stared. "You want me to promise to stay a prisoner here, even after you're dead?" "I'm asking you to protect the people you care about." Leon's voice was dead serious. "Because if I get taken out, others in my family will come for them. Especially Layla. She's my heir. They'll either use her, control her, or kill her just to wipe out my line." Calling Leon's logic twisted was putting it mildly. It was a masterclass in psychological warfare. "It's called being realistic," he shot back, picking apart her loyalties like a surgeon. "Your connection to the kid, to Evelyn, I see it. If I'm gone, you're all they'll have." Claire's mind was racing. "Then let us go, all three of us." "Into what? The void?" he scoffed. "Evelyn's inheritance is 0. You're a ghost in the system, a phantom created from a buried 911 call. Officially, you don't exist." His voice went ice cold like a corporate analyst. "This is your life now. Your only choice is what part you play, victim or survivor." A raw urge to scream, to smash his messed up logic to pieces flared inside Claire. And yet, the sick part was, he was right. Her love for Layla and Evelyn was real, and without him, they were sitting ducks. "If I agree," she said slowly, "what's the deal?" "Your freedom within these walls, their total safety, and my solemn promise that you won't be separated." Her laugh was like shattering glass. "Your promise? It's the only currency I have left." Their eyes locked, a silent deal being struck across the giant desk. "Fine," Claire finally caved. "I'll stay. I'll protect them." "Not for me, for them," Leon confirmed with a sharp nod. "That's the only price." As Claire got up to leave, he hit her with one last thing. "When the time comes to choose between running and fighting, you choose to fight. They need you more than you need to be free." She walked out without answering, the chilling truth of his words sinking in. She'd already made that choice the first time she held Layla. Leon's doomsday clock started ticking insanely fast. A dark cloud fell over the estate as tinted SUVs ferried guys with voices like broken glass through the gates day and night. Leon was barely around, and when he was, his jaw was clenched and his temper was shot. In his place, Marcello became a fixture, his slick silver hair and cold smirk showing up everywhere. The way he watched Evelyn and Layla was a creepy, predatory stare that set off every alarm in Claire's head. One time, she caught him watching Layla play, his eyes sizing up the kid like she was property. "She's got the family eye," Marcello said to nobody. "A strong bloodline. The legacy is safe." Evelyn immediately scooped Layla up into her arms. Later, in the quiet of the nursery, Claire found Evelyn just staring at the sleeping baby. "He terrifies me," Evelyn whispered. "Marcello, He looks at her like she's a pawn in their game, not a person. Leon has to protect her. Leon might not have that kind of power anymore. Evelyn turned to her, her face a mask of fear in the dim light. Their fights, the screaming. It's a war over who takes over. If Marcello wins, he won't. We don't know that for sure, Claire said, a lie she didn't even believe herself. They stood there in silence, just watching the little girl breathe. At almost 2, her personality was starting to show, stubborn like Evelyn, with a sharp way of looking at you. If the worst happens, Evelyn murmured, you have to promise me you'll raise her. That's not going to happen. Promise me anyway. Claire saw the pure, unfiltered terror in her friend's eyes. I promise. A tiny bit of tension seemed to drain from Evelyn's shoulders. Thank you. The breaking point hit 3 weeks later. Claire was in the vault, cataloging some old paintings when the first pop of gunfire, distant but unmistakable, shattered the peace of the estate. Her blood turned to ice, more shots, then shouting. The camera fell from her hand as she sprinted for the stairs, but Marcus blocked her path. Stay here, he commanded. What's happening? Stay here. The massive door boomed shut, the sound of the lock sliding home, sealing her in. Claire was buried alive. The thick walls muffled the war zone outside into a sick mess of panicked screams, running feet, and the pop, pop, pop of gunfire. She pressed her ear to the steel, trying to figure out what was happening. It was a schism, a civil war tearing the house apart, with Evelyn and Layla trapped right in the middle of it all. Claire pounded on the door. Marcus, let me out! Anybody! Nothing. Desperate, she scoured the vault for another way out. A phone. Anything. But Leon's design was perfect. It was built to keep people out, but it was just as good at keeping one person in. She was caged, time warped as the battle above finally died down, replaced by a deep, terrifying silence. Claire waited on the cold floor, twisted up in fear and what if. At long last, footsteps, the click of the lock. The door swung open to reveal Vincent, his shirt stained dark red, a gun in his hand. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a few hours, his face set like concrete. Come with me, he said. What happened? Where are Evelyn and Layla? They're safe. Let's go. Vincent led her up through the mansion. The halls were empty, but they told the story of the fight. Walls chewed up by bullets, flipped furniture, and blood smeared on the marble floors. Vincent, tell me what happened. Marcello made his move, tried to take over the family. Leon fought back. Vincent said, his voice totally flat. It didn't go well for either of them. A block of ice formed in Claire's gut. Where is Leon? Vincent stopped at the top of the grand staircase and faced her. He's dead. So is Marcello. The family's broken. Half of them are dead or gone. The war is over. The words didn't even sound real. Evelyn, Claire demanded. I need to see Evelyn. He took her to the master suite where Evelyn sat, clinging to Layla in a death grip. They weren't hurt, but Evelyn's eyes were hollowed out by grief. Claire, she whispered, her voice cracking. Claire rushed over and wrapped them both in a hug. Layla was wailing, a raw sound that matched the chaos around them. Claire just held them as silent, violent sobs shook Evelyn's whole body. What happens to us now? Evelyn finally choked out. From the doorway, Vincent gave them the answer. I'm taking over what's left. The old guard is gone. It's gonna be a long time before we rebuild. And us? Claire demanded. That's up to you. Vincent holstered his weapon. You can stay here, safe but a prisoner, or I can cut you loose. Evelyn's head snapped up. Loose? You're Leon's widow, a figurehead with no power and honestly a strategic liability. Too many loose ends. Vincent's face was impossible to read. So, I'm giving you a choice. Live under my protection or walk away with what you can carry. The word just echoed in Claire's head. Freedom. It was actually real after all this time. But Evelyn was already shaking her head. Walk away to where? She asked. I have nothing. No money, no family, no skills. And Layla? Her voice broke. She's Leon's daughter. Sooner or later, someone will come looking for her, to use her or to hurt her. Not if they think you're both dead, Vincent shot back. The room went dead silent. What are you proposing? Claire asked, her voice careful. A fire, tonight? The East Wing got messed up in the fight. It could easily look like a tragic accident with 2 bodies burned too badly to be identified. So here's the endgame for the Moretti crime family, Vincent says, cold as ice. You gotta ditch your whole past. New names, new backstories, basically delete your old selves. The prize? You walk free. Evelyn's face is a war zone of pure desperation and terror. This is it. The exit Claire dreamed of. But it costs everything, and she has to trust Vincent, the guy who dragged her back before. What's your angle in all this? Claire demands, looking for the catch. Vincent stalls. Let's call it wiping my slate clean. I've been part of this family's poison for way too long. He nods at them. You guys deserve better. And if we don't take the deal, Evelyn shoots back, her mind spinning. You become my problem, you'll be safe, looked after, but locked in this world forever. No leaving, no calls, no texts. The exact same gilded cage Leon built, he confirms without flinching. And if we bounce? Then you're ghosts. I'll set you up with cash, fake IDs, and a head start. After that, you're on your own. Claire watches Evelyn crumble under the weight of the choice. Layla needs a shot at a normal life, Claire says, her voice low. A real childhood without all this family's dark baggage. She also needs to be alive, Evelyn snaps back. In here, she's protected. Out there, we're fugitives. You've been a fugitive since the day you married Leon. And boom, Evelyn's got no comeback for that one. This isn't just my call, she finally says. Claire, what do you want? Claire looks at Layla, who's watching the adults with this super serious expression. Then at Evelyn, a woman just hollowed out by fear. What she wants feels like a question from another lifetime. Freedom was her whole jam, but being a prisoner completely rewired her. She's a whole new person now, part-time mom to Layla and Evelyn's personal shrink. The choice is a razor's edge between getting her own life back and defending theirs. In a voice she doesn't even recognize, Claire hears herself agree to stay. Her reason isn't about feelings, it's a cold, hard risk calculation. The what-ifs of escaping, like if Vincent's playing them, or the fact they'd be hunted forever, versus the psycho but predictable prison they know. She basically picks the devil she knows over a freedom that could get them all killed. It's a classic case of trauma, hitting the reset button on your brain. She's choosing a nicer warden. Claire's quiet declaration, survival is a skill I have mastered, signals a new strategy. Not escape, but endurance. A siege she'll fight from inside to keep the kid, Layla, safe. Across the room, Vincent clears his throat, basically saying, all right, new game, new rules. A brutal choice had to be made under fire. For their escape plan to work, the blaze had to be undeniable. Evelyn laid out her non-negotiable demands. No more locked rooms, and absolutely no more eyes on them 24/7. Inside the estate, they would be Lyra's moms. Vincent agreed in a heartbeat. He even said they could leave if they wanted, but then dropped the catch. He couldn't erase what they knew about his world. It wasn't freedom, just a different cage. Bigger, shinier, and without Leon's personal brand of crazy, it was still more room than they'd had before. After a quick look at Claire, who nodded back, Evelyn whispered the words, "We will stay." You could literally see the tension drain from Vincent's shoulders. He confirmed the plan. They'd officially die in the fire with Leon wiped off the books. He left, leaving Evelyn and Claire with the sleeping kid who now connected them both. Did we just mess up on an epic scale? Evelyn's voice was barely a whisper. Claire admitted it was a definite maybe, but now they were the ones writing the script. Evelyn let out a bitter, broken laugh. So, we're still trapped. A tense quiet settled between them, broken only by Lyra waking up for a drink, yanking them back to their new, twisted reality. The fire was set 2 nights later. Hiding in the distance, Claire saw the east wing go up like a Roman candle, eating the night sky whole. By the time the siren screamed closer, there was nothing left. The official story was a bloodbath. Leon Moretti, his wife Evelyn, and others died in a fire started by some mob beef. The news ate it up for a week straight. Bottom line, Evelyn Bennett Moretti and Claire Bennett were gone. In their place were 2 women and a girl, stuck on a massive estate with a shady new guardian waiting for fake IDs. A weird kind of peace descended on the property after the inferno. The whole estate felt hollowed out, emptied by flames and people bailing. Vincent brought in a whole new crew, loyal only to him. The stoic Mrs. Kovacs just kept on working like nothing happened. As for Marcus, he just vanished. His fate another ghost story for the mansion. True to his word, Vincent had the locks taken off her doors and pulled her guards. Claire was free to roam the estate, only kept out of Vincent's office and whatever went down in the cellars. It was a total performance of freedom, and she knew the script by heart. Evelyn, finally out from under Leon's thumb, was totally lost in the quiet. She poured everything into Lyra, creating a bubble of lessons and playtime, desperately trying to build a childhood that had been stolen. Claire went back to the freezing cold vault. At Vincent's request, she got back to cataloging his collection, now getting paid for her grim skill set. The money popped up in an account with a name that was almost hers. "You don't have to do this," Vincent had said, basically admitting how messed up it was for her to handle stolen treasures. "It creeps me out," Claire had told him, "but I'm good at it, and the work numbs the pain of everything I've lost." He just nodded, his face a perfect mask of sympathy. "Let me know if you need to stop." She never did. Claire dove headfirst into the job, creating the most detailed inventory of the collection in history. Her research dug up the story behind every piece, a legacy she documented with ice-cold precision. Some nights, she'd find letters tucked behind old paintings, desperate pleas from the original owners, silent proof of the Moretti family's trail of theft. Claire kept them all in a separate file. So Claire's working on this secret project, not even sure why, just this gut feeling it's for some future takedown. She's just going through the motions, burying the deep thoughts. Meanwhile, little Lyra turns 3, then 4, and she's an absolute prodigy with her mom's grit and her dad's sharp mind. Always trailing Claire in the vault, she points to a gloomy portrait asking why the lady is so sad. Claire hits her with the cold reality. She lost someone special. Lyra asks if she ever got them back. The answer? A hard no. Absolutely brutal. And the new guy in charge, Vincent, is a whole different kind of monster than Leon. This new boss was hands-off but not cruel. A total pragmatist with a tiny shred of decency. He'd show up for dinner once a week, check on Lyra, and make sure their golden cage was still comfortable. But the family business never stopped. Shady suits coming and going, unmarked trucks in the dead of night. It was a constant low-level hum of crime Claire learned to ignore. Then one night, almost 2 years after Leon bit the dust, Vincent summons her to his office. A direct call-out like this was a huge red flag. "Sit," he orders. She does. He pours a drink for himself and gets straight to the point. He's thinking about the end game. What happens to this whole empire when he's gone? She jokes about retirement, but he shuts that down fast. There's no retirement in this life, only a bullet or a prison cell. He drops the bomb. He has no kids, no heir to carry on the name. The family line is basically toast. When he dies, this whole mess becomes someone else's problem. Claire is frozen solid. He then points out that Lyra is Leon's kid, which technically gives her a claim to everything the family built. You can hear the leather chair groaning as Claire tenses up. He's like, "She's 5 now, but she'll grow up, and people will come looking for her." Claire says they'll be long gone. But Vincent calls her bluff, pointing out she's had chances to bolt, but stayed for the kid, the mom, and herself. He says she's carved out a life here, a broken one, but a life with a purpose. She snaps back that it's just a nicer cage. Vincent ignores her, laying out his master plan. He's setting up a trust fund for Lyra, big enough for her to choose her own fate at 18. Either take the throne or burn the whole kingdom down. And why is he telling her this? Because he's anointing Claire as the shot caller for Lyra's future. He knows Evelyn is too broken to push the kid to leave, but Claire isn't. He's basically asking her to raise Lyra to hate her own inheritance, to be tougher than her dad ever was. His question is simple. Can you do it? Claire thinks of Lyra's innocent face and says, "Yes, I can." He gives a single nod. Done deal. As she leaves, he thanks her for sticking round for them when she didn't have to. Her answer was a barely audible whisper. "Yes, I was. They needed me." She bailed before he could say another word. The years just melted away. Lyra grew up learning art and painting from Claire in the vault. She got her mom's quiet strength, even as Evelyn herself was practically a ghost. But from Claire, she learned to question everything and see the world without rose-colored glasses. The family business, Leon's name, the violence it was all built on. All of it was a ghost they never talked about. They just lived. The year Lyra turned 7, the catalog was finally done. Every stolen item was logged, photographed, its dirty history laid bare. She handed the final database to Vincent, feeling a twisted mix of pride and disgust. He calls it a masterpiece, something a museum would kill for. She fires back that it's a museum of stolen goods. He asks what she'd do. Her answer? Repatriate it. Give every single artifact back to its rightful owners. Every last one. And if that nukes the family, if it means prison for everyone involved, Claire's gaze is like steel. Then that's the price. Some things are meant to burn. Vincent's expression is unreadable as he warns her she might get her wish sooner than she thinks. He cryptically says, "The world is changing and a day of reckoning is coming." Then boom. 3 months later, the feds storm the estate at dawn, guns blazing. Vincent is cuffed and charged with a laundry list of crimes, and Claire's meticulously compiled ledgers, her life's work for the past few years, it becomes the prosecution's entire case against the Moretti family. Every single entry was another nail in their coffin. Vincent's trial kicked off 6 months later. He was found guilty on 37 counts and got a 40-year sentence in federal prison. The estate was seized, its assets sold off. For their cooperation, Claire, Evelyn, and Lyra were offered a clean slate. New identities, new lives, a complete wipe of their past. Total freedom. They took the deal. The U.S. Marshals dumped them in a small apartment in Portland, Oregon. A whole other planet from their gilded cage. Claire Harper, Evelyn Ross, Lyra Ross. The new names felt alien for weeks, but Lyra, with the insane resilience of a kid, shed her past like old skin. Within days, she was just another student crushing it at her new school. She'd come home buzzing with stories about her teacher and her new bestie, Sophie. The estate might as well have never existed for her. That's the superpower of being young. You can just box up the trauma and move on. Claire, however, wasn't so lucky. The new apartment was tiny, a 2-bedroom box that felt smaller than her old closet. It was safe, sure. No guards, no locked doors, no secret mob meetings. But on their first night, Evelyn looked out at the city lights and asked the million-dollar question. We are free now. Then why does it not feel so? Claire had no answer. This freedom they wanted was way more complicated than they thought. They had new names but no history, a 6-month government check, and after that they were completely on their own. Claire's art history degree was basically a useless piece of paper without a past she could claim. Evelyn had 0 work experience, period. They were ghosts, starting from scratch at an age when everyone else had their lives figured out. I could get a job at a coffee shop, Evelyn suggested one morning, staring at the want ads. Or a department store, something simple. You've never worked retail. I've never done a lot of things, doesn't mean I can't learn. Claire just watched her friend, her own mind working like a cold, sharp machine. Evelyn, who used to be so bold, was now a bundle of anxiety and night terrors. The thought of her dealing with angry customers and insane hours was a joke. What about you? Evelyn asked. I haven't decided yet. But she had. An idea was already forming, quiet and deadly in the back of her mind. For the next week, Claire was a ghost in museums and art galleries, not looking for a job. Her fake resume made that impossible, but just to look. To remember what the art world looked like outside a thief's dark vault. Claire's first step back into the world took her to a tiny art gallery downtown, a calm spot where she watched the owner, Margaret Chen, a woman in her 60s. The place felt like a safe house, showing off local art with a quiet respect. For a solid 10 minutes, she got lost in one landscape painting before the owner walked over. When asked, Claire admitted she used to catalog art, then dropped a carefully edited version of the truth. I worked for a private collector, she said, who got his art in some ethically gray ways. It was a calculated risk, painting herself as a pawn to see if the woman would trust her, all while hiding the insane level of her own trauma. Margaret's silent nod told her she understood that the art world had a dark and dirty underbelly. Then came the job offer, part-time, super low stress. It was a lifeline, a chance to have a purpose that wasn't tied to the crushing weight of her past. The owner wasn't offering it out of pity, but because she saw something. She'd watched the intense, almost religious way Claire looked at the art, the quiet knowledge in how she held herself. It was a shot at a new life, And for someone who thought she had none left, it was everything. Claire said yes on the spot. The work, managing inventory, setting up displays, talking to customers, became its own kind of therapy, a routine that was both totally normal and a blessing in disguise. Evelyn found her own kind of escape in a bookstore where mind-numbing tasks and pure exhaustion quieted the noise in her head. Their daughter, Layla, was killing it at school, making friends and dreaming about her future, a single bright spot in their carefully faked lives. But the trauma was always there, like a ghost in the room. Nightmares still ripped Evelyn out of her sleep, leaving her shaky for days. They stuck to the story that Layla's father was dead, a lie they had to tell. Claire lived on high alert where every unexpected noise could trigger a full-blown panic attack. The past wasn't gone, it was just woven into their new reality, a fact proven by the way they checked and rechecked the locks on the doors every single night. 6 months after they started over, Claire watched Evelyn completely fall apart. The trigger was something painfully normal, a dad buying a book for his young daughter. It was a picture of everyday love that was a brutal slap in the face compared to the memory of Leon. Evelyn confessed she felt like a total fraud, like she couldn't even pull off this one simple act of being normal. Claire didn't feed her any cheap reassurances. Instead, she laid out their shared truth. You just have to keep faking it. She called their life one long performance, admitting they were just playing a role until, maybe, some of it started to feel real. The simple act of making dinner with the kid was enough to bring back their shaky sense of balance, at least for a little while. 2 years went by in a quiet rhythm. Layla turned 11, a brilliant kid who was acing classes on forensics and debate. When she asked to go to a museum, the simple, normal request hit Claire like a punch to the gut. Claire had been bumped up to assistant manager, and their combined paychecks let them move into a bigger house where Layla had her own room. But in Layla's 12th year, their carefully built peace was destroyed by a knock on the door. 2 U.S. Marshals were standing in their porch. In that single moment, Claire's brain flipped back to survival mode, sure that their old life had finally caught up to them. But the agent's calm vibe suggested a whole different kind of storm was about to hit. The name that dropped in that sterile room was Vincent Moretti. The diagnosis was delivered with zero emotion. Pancreatic cancer, final stage, giving him maybe 3 months to live. Moretti's official last request was to see Claire, a demand that made her world spin. The marshals wouldn't say why, but they promised her full protection if she agreed to go. Evelyn's reaction was pure gut-level terror. She insisted Claire owed him nothing. But Claire was already doing the dark math, weighing the man who set her free against the man who helped keep her locked up for years. She told the agents she needed time to think. As soon as they were alone, she and Evelyn started trying to pick apart a completely impossible choice. To Evelyn, this was a total scam, a dying snake's last move to get a clean slate. Claire shot back that the federal marshals escorting them kinda canceled out any physical threat. This wasn't about wanting to go, but about needing to. Part of her just wanted to let the chapter end when he died. But the dude did help them get free, and she needed answers. The meeting, she argued, was non-negotiable for her own sanity. In a total ride-or-die moment, Evelyn declared she wasn't going solo. "We do this together," she said. After dropping Layla off, they were taken to a federal prison, a cold, sterile hellhole that was exactly what Claire expected. They were processed and led into a tiny visitation room. Vincent Moretti looked like a man death had already claimed. Sickness had carved him out, leaving his skin a sickly yellow and his eyes sunk into deep pits. Cuffed to the table, he sat with a guard standing behind him like a statue. He breathed their names, his voice a dry crackle. Claire cut right through the silence with one question. What do you want? His answer was way too simple. He wanted to apologize and explain. Evelyn just sneered at that. Vincent, totally unfazed, launched into a full confession, saying his biggest crime was just staying quiet while his family ran wild. He ran down the list of their sins, Claire's kidnapping, Evelyn's forced marriage, and called himself a coward who only cared about saving his own skin. Claire just watched him, her face a total blank. She asked what flipped the switch for this last-minute confession. Moretti dropped a bomb. The evidence she'd gathered let the feds recover over 60 pieces of stolen art, now back with the original families. Then he dropped another one. A $2 million trust fund from clean money was set up for Layla, which she can access on her 18th birthday. Evelyn's first instinct was to reject the cash. Moretti made it clear the money was only for the kid, to give her a future clean of their mess. It was, he claimed, the freedom he couldn't give them himself. Claire kept staring him down, trying to find the angle, the con, but all she saw was a dude on death's door trying to balance the books on his screwed-up life. "Is that it?" she asked. "Almost," Vincent rasped, shifting in his seat. "You need to know I was the one who called the feds. I was the informant that led to the raid." You could hear Evelyn gasp. "Why?" Claire asked, her voice steady as a rock. "I hit my limit," he said. "With that life, with all the violence, I got sick of being a gear in a machine that just destroyed everything. The three of you deserved better." His eyes were glassy with tears he wouldn't let fall. "I couldn't undo what was done, but I could burn the whole thing down to get you out." Claire let this new piece of the puzzle sink in. "You took a 40-year sentence to free us." "I was jailed for my crimes," and he corrected her. "Your freedom was the only good thing that came out of it." After a long, heavy silence, Claire delivered her verdict. "I don't forgive you. I can't. What we went through, what Leon did, that's bigger than any forgiveness I have. I'm not asking you to forgive me, but I do get why you did what you did." Claire's voice was completely flat. "I hope you find some peace before you die." Vincent just nodded slightly. "Thanks for coming. This means more than you know." The guard signaled their time was up. As they were about to leave, Claire stopped at the door and looked back. "Vincent, those 60 pieces that were found, is there a list?" "The feds have it. You can request it." Claire gave a single nod and walked out. On the plane home, Evelyn asked, "Why do you want that list?" "Because I have to see them," Claire said. "The families that got their art back. I need proof that it all meant something." "He told you it did." "I need to see it for myself." 2 weeks later, she had the list. 63 items returned to their people. She looked up every single one. A painting stolen from a Jewish family during the war was now hanging on their granddaughter's wall. A snatched statue, now safe behind gallery glass, was finally home. An ancient family relic, gone for an age, was back where it belonged. Every recovery was a whisper of payback in a noisy world, with Claire as the ghost making it happen. This gig couldn't rewind the clock on her lost years or patch the cracks in her spirit, but it did give that darkness a point, turning it into something more than just scraping by. Vincent cashed in his chips 6 weeks after they last spoke. Claire was a no-show. There wasn't even a funeral, just a dirt nap in the prison yard. Still, his ghost haunted her. a twisted figure who was both the architect of her hell and the one who handed her the exit key. People are messy. They can be demons one second and saints the next. Time kept bulldozing forward. Layla hit 13, then 14. She grew into a sharp young woman obsessed with justice, art, and poetry, and totally aware her family tree grew in poisoned ground. They fed her the PG-rated version of her history as she got older, but she refused to let those skeletons define her. She was building a new legacy from scratch, one that had nothing to do with Leon's rotten name or the Moretti clan she dodged. Then one night, at 15, Layla's question sliced through the quiet kitchen. "Aunt Claire, can I ask you something real?" Claire was at the counter, the rhythmic chop of her knife filling the silence. "Anything. When you and Mom talk about before the bad times, you leave so much out. I get you're trying to protect me, but I'm not a kid. I can take it." Claire's knife froze. She turned, her face a blank mask. "What truth are you looking for?" "The truth about my father, who he really was." A cold, familiar dread gripped Claire. "I'm getting your mother. She needs to be here for this." So they gathered in the living room, Claire, Evelyn, Layla, and dug up the past. Not every single detail, but enough. They laid out the story of Leon, a wedding built on blackmail, of Claire held as a human bargaining chip, of years inside a pretty prison and the desperate bids for freedom. They capped the story off with Vincent's final game-changing move. Layla soaked up every toxic word without making a sound, her face a slow-motion picture of dawning horror. A heavy silence filled the room when they finished. "So," she finally whispered, her voice paper-thin, "my biological father was a monster. You are the daughter of a woman who walked through fire and didn't get burned." Claire shot back, her voice low and fierce. "His evil is not your burden to carry, but his blood is in my veins." "Biology isn't destiny," Evelyn said, her voice hard as steel. "I've watched you grow up, Layla. You're fair and kind and tough. You fight for people who can't fight for themselves. None of that came from Leon. That's all you." "And you?" Layla's gaze snapped to Claire. "Why'd you stick around? You weren't my mom. You could have left." Claire thought about all the easy answers: duty, loyalty, love. "Because you being here required me to be here," she said, giving her the raw truth. "And I needed you. You were my reason to keep going when I had nothing left. You were my mission." Tears welled up in Layla's eyes. "I'm so glad you stayed." "Me too." They hugged as Evelyn cried softly nearby, a lifetime of weight finally being lifted. At 17, Layla graduated a year ahead of schedule, loaded with academic awards. She had acceptance letters from 3 universities, all offering to pay her way. The trust fund Vincent set up kicked in on her 18th birthday. Layla stared at the bank statement for 5 solid silent minutes. $2 million, she finally choked out. "This can't be real." "It's all yours," Claire said gently. "Do whatever you want with it." "What did Mom think about this?" "She said the decision was 100% yours." Layla went quiet, lost in thought for a long time. "I want to use part of it to start a foundation for kids stuck in the gears of organized crime, to get them therapy, education, the kind of backup I had from you two that other kids never get." A lump formed in Claire's throat. "That's an incredible idea." "And I'm going to college, majoring in art history, just like you did." Layla looked Claire dead in the eye. "I'm getting into the artifact recovery game, just like you, but I'm doing it legit right from the start." "You don't have to walk my road." I'm not. I'm paving my own, but you showed me what's up. Art, payback, making things right. So yeah, this is happening. Claire yanked her into a bone-crushing hug. This kid, this absolute unit who came from a psycho dad, decided to grow toward the sun. She could have been a villain, but instead, she's using the ashes of that legacy to plant a whole new garden. I'm so ridiculously proud of you, Claire choked out. I know you tell me every day, and I'll keep telling you every day for the rest of my life. The years flew by. Layla crushed university, then grad school. She owned the halls of museums, teamed up with art cops, and brought stolen history back where it belonged. She was a straight-up beast at it, a total legend. Evelyn kicked off a small literary press, a move that did more for her soul than her bank account. And that was enough. Claire kept her gig at the Art Institute, eventually taking over as director when her boss bounced. A decade later, she cashed out her gallery shares and jumped into teaching, getting a new rush from seeing the creative fire in her students. Their lives weren't built to fight their trauma, but to work around it. The wound became part of the masterpiece, the dark streak that made the other colors pop. At Layla's 30th birthday party, Claire felt a calm she hadn't felt in forever. The pain wasn't gone, but she'd made a deal with its shadow and was cool with how her life turned out, and with the women they'd all become. Evelyn shot a look at Claire that said everything about their insane journey. Both of them, now in their 50s, had a few battle scars, but radiated pure, unshakable strength. We got a W, Evelyn said, straight-faced. Damn right, Claire shot back. This level of comeback was not on my bingo card. Or mine. Layla called them over to cut the cake. In that perfect moment, Claire pictured him, Leon, and wondered what he'd think of them running their own lives. The thought of his narcissistic rage over losing all control made her crack a small smile, a final, silent middle finger to his memory. Years later, at 63, a message from Layla dropped 2 new bombshells. She was marrying a woman named Sarah, and they wanted her and Evelyn to be their witnesses. The text laid out their plan to start adopting. They'd already found their kid, a girl 8 years old, lost in the foster system after her parents got locked up. Layla, knowing Claire might hesitate, spelled it out. She had to pay forward the rescue she'd been given. She felt a burning need to give another lost kid a real home. Claire read the words, and a picture of her old self flashed in her mind. A jumpy, paranoid wreck who just wanted to be invisible. The long haul, from victim to survivor and now to protector, was finally complete. You're going to be an incredible mom, she replied. I learned from the best. The wedding was a small, chill affair, full of good vibes. Standing next to Evelyn, Claire couldn't ignore the difference between this bright, happy scene and the suffocating nightmare of her own wedding ages ago. Their new kid, Emma, came into their lives 6 months down the line. In the kid, Claire saw a ghost of her own past, a tiny, watchful person whose caution was a total throwback. Layla's way of raising Emma was a masterclass in patient healing, a slow and steady takedown of secondhand fear. As Claire watched these little moments, a story read in a calm voice, a small hand learning to draw, she knew a devastating cycle was over. The generational curse of trauma was being broken. One person's choice was enough to smash the whole damn system. At Claire's 65th birthday, a small party thrown by Evelyn, Emma came up to her, dead serious, and said she wanted to learn the language of art. The kid's announcement, delivered with zero hesitation, hit Claire like a lightning bolt. That's my job. to fix what's broken. Dropping to her knees, Claire pulled the little girl into a hug and whispered a promise. Then I'll teach you everything I know. That night, alone in the dark, Claire played back the entire chaotic movie of her life. She saw the whole thing, from its start in absolute terror to present built on a family made from rubble. She'd weathered mental storms that should have shattered her. What she once called her weaknesses were actually genius-level survival moves. From the wreckage, she'd grown a badass ability to love, building a real life from total destruction. She'd raised a new generation that was now raising another, passing down resilience like a family heirloom. The woman who once begged to be invisible now stood in the spotlight of her own story, refusing to ever be silenced again. Maybe this outcome wasn't just good enough. Maybe it was the best anyone could ever hope for. Claire closed her eyes, letting the full reality sink in. The phantom pains of her massive losses, the fragile hope of her victories, and the undeniable truth of the person she had become. She had made it. They all had. And from the fire of that shared battle, they had finally figured out how to actually live.